Oh, well, hello there. I don't really want to waste all that much time with an intro. You probably read the title, you probably saw the thumbnail. You know what this is. Ranking every episode from worst to best, Simpsons Season 2. There is one thing I want to get out of the way first, so I guess let's do that. The way that I record footage for these videos is with the DVDs. And for the most part, it works fine. Every single one of the discs works perfectly fine, except for disc 4. I tried it on multiple different DVD players, but no luck. And that held like the last 5 or 6 episodes of the season, so in order to get that footage, I had to pull it from online. And everywhere that you look online, it's going to be in a stretched, cropped aspect ratio. Really, the only way to watch The Simpsons in its original aspect ratio is with the DVDs. So a good 5 or 6 episodes on this list are gonna be in a weird aspect ratio. I'm sorry, there's not really anything I can do about that. But without further ado, let's just get into the video.
Don't you hate it when you go to the bathroom and there's no toilet paper?
Oh, it's funny because it's true.
My least favorite episode of Season 2 is, drumroll please, guess not, guess we don't have the budget, whatever, Homer versus Lisa in the 8th Commandment. Before I talk about this episode, I just want you to know that I did thoroughly enjoy every episode in this season, even this one. But I mean, I don't know, I just thought this episode was a bit more flawed than the rest. I don't even fucking know. The reason why it's my least favorite episode is because, well, let's see. The episode is about piracy, something that okay. And it opens with Flanders yelling a man out of his house for offering him illegally obtained cable. Homer overhears this, and of course he chases the man down so he can get cheap cable, because character traits, you know. At first the family's a little skeptical, but then they eventually open up to it and say, hey, piracy's a-okay with me, Bart Simpson. That is until Lisa learns about what hell is in Sunday school, and of course, you violate the 10 Commandments, buddy, you're out of there. You're gonna go straight down to the pits of hell. You talk to people such as Gandhi, not Gandhi, such as Hitler, such as, I don't know, Christopher Columbus. Didn't you reap a bunch of... No, who was that? The point is, Lisa doesn't want to watch it because it goes against the 8th Commandment, thou shalt not steal. Which, you know, that's the name of the episode, so it kind of fits. A little. At first she ridiculed him openly, but then she realized that it's best to just let everyone do for themselves. And she leaves him alone. Great, end the episode there. Just kidding! I mean, that would be what a normal family would probably do, but you know what? It's the 90s. What are you gonna do? They're too busy watching Seinfeld. Wait, was Seinfeld? When did Seinfeld come out? Okay, 1989. Yeah, so they're too busy watching Seinfeld to care about poor old Lisa's feelings. Now, here's my main gripe with this episode. I do not like how preachy, peachy pickles this episode is. It is so preachy. I mean, I've broken plenty of the 10 Commandments, probably all of them, including that one that, you know, that just, no, don't do that. They make piracy out to be like the scummiest thing people can do. And I'm sure that from a writer's perspective, it wouldn't be ideal to say that piracy is okay. Overall, not pirating is what's selling their DVDs, but they are so one-sided. Just so one-sided. Maybe they were trying to show both sides of piracy, but that's just not the vibe that I was getting.
Well, don't you remember the 8th Commandment?
Oh, of course. It's thou shalt not, covet.
Thou shalt not steal!
I also didn't appreciate just how whiny they made Lisa. I mean, I know she's 8, but they put Lisa in much more adult situations in the very same season, and she just acts so much more adult. I would prefer them to make up their mind on how old Lisa should act, and she can have both childish and mature tendencies, but I mean, don't just stick to one for one episode, for Christ's sakes. They just went to the extreme here. Overall, it's funny enough to retain my attention, but the fact that they just try so hard to cram its anti-piracy, conservative ideas, it's just exhausting. I mean, you wouldn't download a car, would you? You wouldn't pirate The Simpsons online, would you?
I'm sorry, young man, you're just not ready. Pick up your check at the front office, and for God's sake, put some clothes on.
Dancing Homer, the first of many, many, many baseball episodes, and sadly, the least memorable. I mean, there are decent jokes, but it overall just kind of falls flat. This may not be a fair ranking, because baseball just in general is something that I'm not really interested in. And I know that there are people that enjoy it, but with that said, I do like the baseball episode in Season 3. It's simply just, I don't know, more memorable. Sadly, I could just barely remember this episode existing, much less liking it. So, yeah, there's that.
Hello, Dr. Hibbert? This is Marge Simpson.
Not that I'm angry, but how did you get my home number?
Bart's dog gets an F. If there's one thing I can say, and one thing only about this episode, it's they do a good job of making you wince, cringe, absolutely piss your pants at what Santa's little helper does. And yes, I know, he's a freaking dog, but they did not need to make a 22-minute cringe compilation of a dog. I mean, my generation has seen enough cringe compilations to last a lifetime, and none of them are good. None of them. Try to find one. And if you do, I can promise you, it's not this episode. Don't get me wrong, I do like dogs and all, but they really didn't need to have an episode about the worst attributes of a dog. It's just hard to watch everybody get so bummed out about their stuff when it gets chewed up. Treehouse of Horror. I already made a video where I talked about this episode, so I'm not really gonna go into deep detail about it, so I recommend checking that out first. But what I will say is that this episode would have been a lot higher if it weren't for that Raven segment. It's not bad, I'm just not a fan of old gothic poems. I feel like I speak for a lot of people when I say that. But I mean, what do I know? I don't even remember the last time I was on the Edgar Allan Poe subreddit.
Now, are you gonna stop bugging me?
No.
Are you?
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 No.
Are
No.
you?
No.
Are you?
No.
Are you?
No.
Are you?
Okay.
3 Men and a Comic Book. It's pretty flat overall. You get exactly what the title advertises, except instead of men, it's with 10-year-old boys, so hey, you know what? I can get down with that. Wait, hold on, wait, let me rephrase that!
My best dress.
Dead Putting Society, because, I mean, there just weren't enough episode titles of TV shows that were just puns. This is the episode that just sparks Homer's absolute loathing towards Flanders. I mean, yeah, we did get some of that in the first season, but I mean, it's nowhere near the degree of this, okay? He's just, in Homer's eyes, he's just an irredeemable, squashable bug. He's just a stain on society that needs to be eradicated immediately. My main problem with this is a little silly, if I'm gonna be honest, but it's just way too wholesome, man. I mean, really, really wholesome. Too wholesome. There's nothing against wholesome humor. I just think that these characters are a little more suited for, I don't know, edgier material. I mean, not like South Park edgy, but definitely not like this either. Don't get me wrong, it's still decently funny, but the ending is just a little too anticlimactic for my tastes. I mean, it ends with Bart and it was Todd, okay? With both of them just dropping out, and it made the episode feel a little, I don't know, pointless.
Hey, you kids, stop kicking the seat. I'm kicking the seat.
Dad, don't you want to know where we're going?
No. Discount Lion Safari.
Old Money! We finally get a Grandpa episode, and you know what? I like Grandpa episodes because it turns a character that's usually the punching bag of the family into, I don't know, a real character. And when I mean character, I don't just mean punching bag for old person jokes. I mean someone with real feelings and real personalities that you can connect with. But, despite everything I said, I do think that this episode is better done in Season 5 when he finds love once more. The reason being, it's just simply pretty flat in the humor department, and don't get me wrong, I like the episode, but it's just a sad episode with a sweet ending. And I didn't even come close to laughing even once. Maybe that wasn't the writer's intention, but when looking up Simpsons in Google, it tells you that it's music. What? Okay then, never mind. I didn't find myself humming to any track in this episode, so that's a 1 out of 10 for me. It's terrible. With all my kitties out of the way. And also, by the way, I'm not even kidding. It actually says that The Simpsons is in the musical category on Google. Anyways, this episode has a fine example of what I consider a lazy writing trope. What am I talking about? Well, some writers want their shows to have a heartwarming moment, so what do? They have their characters be absolute jerkos to the other characters, and then they burst out in a scene of angriness, and then they have them make up and apologize, and bing bang bam, you got yourself a heartwarming moment. I personally find it lazy. I see it done everywhere, but I guess I'll give it a pass, because it's the 90s. You always gotta give it a pass for being the 90s.
Bart, do that thing you do that's so cute.
What?
That thing you know how to do.
What?
Go to bed.
The War of the Simpsons. I really don't like seeing Homer acting like, well, to be honest, kind of an asshole, and in turn putting his marriage on the line, but if there's anything that works in the vein of the show, it's something like this, so I really can't complain. Still a little hard to watch, though. Also, I find it a little weird that their marriage is fixed with one fish. I mean, it doesn't even mean all that much. I mean, it's a fish. Stakes aren't really all that high, if you know what I mean. Okay, you might get a little mad at this, but just hear me out.
But you, sir, are a baboon!
Me?
Yes, you! Baboon, 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 baboon!
I don't think you realize what you're saying.
Baboon!
Lisa's Substitute. This episode is regarded as one of the best of the entire series. Well, it is a good episode, I'll give you that. But there are still problems that I have with it, and it's definitely not my favorite episode, even of the season. My biggest problem stems with the previously mentioned lazy writing trope, which is just the cheap apology at the end. Just like with Old Money, the character acts like an absolute jerk, in this case Homer, and then Lisa outbursts, then Homer goes to improve the situation, then they make up. But I don't even think Homer was that much of a jerk if I'm gonna be honest. So it was more so just frustrating than anything. This is also what I'm talking about when I say they make Lisa either way too mature or way too young and immature. In this case, she goes to the extreme of acting like she's like 4 times older than she actually is. With that said, I do really like the subplot of Bart running for class president, and there are some good jokes as well. And yes, of course, I'm not gonna forget about that iconic moment of Mr. Oh, crap, what was his name? When Mr. Bergstrom just gives Lisa that note, it's just such a super heart-melting moment. You can just see Lisa's eyes just... Oh my god, it's so cute. It's seriously hard not to tear up, but again, I just do not like how needlessly mean and resentful Lisa is to Homer. Maybe Homer was being an ogre in Lisa's words. Wait, no, it was a baboon, but I didn't see it. All I know for sure is that it's a roller coaster of an episode for me. With all the dislikes out of the way, let's just get into the episodes that I can commend more.
Oh no, I can't believe it.
Well, what's the matter? Well, I would think you'd be used to failing by now.
Bart gets an F. There's no better way to start a season than with a completely refurbished, redone intro. It's more polished, it's more time-conserving, and it's more character balanced. This episode had a lot to live up to, because after the first season, The Simpsons just absolutely blew up. Everybody was tuning in to see what Bart and Lisa, Maggie, Homer, Bart, Marge, what they're all doing, and this is what they get. The animation style really improved since the first season. And with that, I'm sure the budget did as well. The humor is overall a lot more witty, fast, and smart. The characters look a lot more cleaned up. And the cast has been expanded to so many more classic characters. And with this episode, you can really see Homer's personality shifting from that uptight dad vibe to more of a, I guess, buffoonish, oblivious, fun dad, which really works a lot better with his design in my opinion. I just don't really think that his character design is suited for the buzzkill grouch dad from season 1 in the Tracy Ullman shorts. I also noticed that this episode has a lot of Edna and Martin in it, which just reminds me on how their voice actresses have recently passed away. So I thought it was worth mentioning so they could be remembered. And also, interestingly enough, this is the highest viewed episode of the series. This is probably like the second most important episode of the entire series, right next to the pilot. And I also very much respect it from a writing point of view. It's absolutely brilliant, and I'm actually not being sarcastic. I do really like this episode. Especially that ending, man. They just have a way with my tears. Simpson and Delilah. I guess that at this point they just didn't know what scream to give Homer in the intro. But that's not why this is in the dead center of the list. That would be stupid. This episode has a very simple concept. Take one character's physical trait and then flip it. It's been done on literally every TV show. Don't look into that. This time it's Homer's hair, or I guess lack thereof. No, that's right, because he has hair in this episode. This episode has more of that classic humor that I can get down with. I don't really even know what that means when I say it. I guess it's just more satirical.
Hey, that got her going.
Bitchin'.
Bart vs. Thanksgiving. I have no idea why there aren't more Thanksgiving episodes, but out of the 2 or 3 that we have, this is probably the best.
Apology accepted.
You know, Marge, we're great parents.
Itchy and Scratchy and Marge. This is also a fairly simple concept. Marge is just concerned with how just so gruesome and violent cartoons these days are. Well, I mean, this episode came out like 30 years ago, so I guess probably shouldn't say these days. Well, anyways, the violent nature of this fictional cartoon show rubs off on the baby character, and in turn, she hits the father character on the head with a mallet, knocking him out cold. When you really get into it, I do think that this episode conveys a good message. It gives a good insight on what should be considered art and just complete tasteless filth.
I got a problem. Once you stop this car, I'm gonna hug you and kiss you, and then I'll never be able to let you go.
The Way We Was. I love episodes that delve into the past, I just really do. Not a whole lot of laugh fuel, but it's just fun to see all these characters in high school, and how Marge and Homer met and eventually got together. It's just so great. This is a terrible take.
Hey, would you like to go?
She's mine!
Master, you are needed in the kitchen.
I said cover for me, damn it!
But Master, we need your skilled hands.
My skilled hands are busy. You do it!
1 fish, 2 fish, blowfish, bluefish. I think I said that right. Here we get an opening to some classic Japanese stereotypes, but I mean, since this was released in 1991, I guess I can give it a pass. Maybe. As for the plot, stop me if you've heard this one before. A character has 24 hours to live, that's the episode. Something like that happens in actually every TV show. With most shows, they just have the character do something reckless because they just don't care anymore. But in this case, the father character just wants to have a nice moment with his family and make everything right for his last moments. And we get a nice moment of heart with every single character. And if you cannot tell, the father character does not end up dying in the end. So bonus points. Principal Charming. The start of Patty and Selma's many husbands/wives. I like that there is more development with Patty and Selma, and it is also decently humored. And let's not forget that it delves into Skinner's character. That is before it's ruined later in season 9, but it's still brilliant writing, and for some reason the school's just a bell tower now. I don't even know the deal with that. Blood Feud. This episode is the season finale, so this better end this roller coaster of a season off right, because if it doesn't, well then, I don't know, I'd be pretty mildly annoyed. But thankfully, it's good. So, sweet. Pretty funny, nothing too notable, but it definitely feels like The Simpsons is evolving into what it becomes in the next season, and the next season, and the next season, and the next season. But not the rest.
Ironic, isn't it, Smithers? This anonymous clan of slack-jawed troglodytes has cost me the election, and yet if I were to have them killed, I would be the one to go to jail. That's democracy for you.
2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish. This is really the first glimpse onto how absolutely destructive the nuclear power plant that the father character works at is towards the environment. Which is probably like the most reoccurring joke in the show. I mean, they made an entire movie about it, for Christ's sakes. And you know what? It was a pretty good movie. Fight me in the comments. Well, anyways, this leads into a Mr. Burns episode, and this perfectly showcases just how smart the writing staff for the season is. This shows corruption of the government and how the rich and the powerful own pretty much most of the world. And there's that satire I look for, very funny, but like, in a smart funny, you know? Not like me.
And, incidentally, thanks for not making fun of my genitalia.
I thought I did.
Brush with greatness. This is really our first instance of seeing the father character's weight, and it just tumbles in to so many seasons of jokes about his weight. Believe it or not, they really didn't talk about how fat the father character was until now. This also has the second best Beatles cameo of the show, second best to the one where Paul McCartney makes the sister character into a vegetarian. Almost said lesbian, but that's not true. This episode also really encapsulates just how Mr. Burns heavy this entire season is. He's in almost every episode in the season. And this is also when you get implications that, you know, maybe Smithers has some feelings for Mr. Burnsies, you know, maybe. This episode really showcases humor that's not too in your face like some of the new episodes, and not in your face enough like some of the season 1 episodes. When it comes to humor, this episode's got you covered. It's got some of my favorite laughs in the whole season. There's even a level of slapstick and craziness that of course I can get down with. And it's definitely one of the more memorable episodes of the season. I mean, who doesn't remember that nice old Springfield Gorge? And unlike Dead Pudding Society, it's definitely not an anticlimactic ending, as somebody does end up jumping off the gorge.
This is the greatest thrill of my life! I'm king of the world! Woohoo! Woohoo!
Any calls, Della?
Calls? Oh, calls, yes. The Supreme Court called again.
Bart gets hit by a car. Yet another episode with Bart in the title. That's like, what, the 5th one in this season? It's exactly as the title promises, you know, Bart gets hit by a car, credits roll. But in all seriousness, this is one of the first appearances of Lionel Hutz, who is one of the best characters. He just is. And he also sadly passed away, but I don't want to get too into that. I'd rather talk about how absolutely well he played this character. And this also shows off some of the best satire in the season by far. This is also the introduction of yet another great character, Dr. Nick, before they killed him off. And finally, we got the best episode of the season. If you've been counting them all, then you might already know this.
Hey, handsome, wanna dunk the clown?
She did things your mother would never do, like have sex for money.
Oh brother, where art thou? This is definitely the best celebrity cameo of the season, probably the entire show. Danny DeVito is one of the best people, just one of the best alive. This episode has everything that I complimented the other episodes about earlier. Great with humor, it's more edgy, it delves into the past. This is also where we get to see Homer's mom for the first time, and when she gets her very own episode later on, it's one of the best in the entire series. Well, that was my list. Hate it, love it, it's my list. I know it's been a long time since I did my first one, but I mean, I made this video like 3 times over, and I just kept scrapping it. I uploaded part 1 all the way back in like July, and here it is in April, finally coming at you with part 2. Here's the thing though, I started working on my season 2 list all the way back in August. I ranked all of the episodes, I wrote the script, I recorded my lines, and I even made an intro and an outro. I just I don't know, I didn't like it. Fast forward all the way up to December, and then I rewrite the script again, I rewatch the episodes again, I rank them again, and then I record some voice lines. Scrap that again. Fast forward all the way back up to April, and here we are now. I think part of it is my opinions just kept rapidly changing. If you go back to my Season 1 video, I feel like I was really hard on Season 1 for absolutely no reason. I mean, of course, every first season of a show is going to be vastly different from the rest of the show, especially when you've got 31 seasons. But, to be honest, after rewatching Season 1, I feel a little more, positive about it, I guess. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, buy my merch in the link description below, and support me on Patreon. I usually kid whenever I say those things, but I really would appreciate if you liked, commented, and subscribed. Of course, I don't have merch or a Patreon, but still, I really do read all the comments, and I've made a vow to start replying to every comment that I get. So please, if you watch this video, I really would like you to comment, because commenting is really what pushes my videos onto other people's feeds. And yes, if you comment, I promise I will reply. Or at least I'll try to. Maybe I'll forget. I wouldn't put it past me. Well anyways, thanks for like 200-something subscribers. And I'll see you next time. Hopefully.
The homie Winston about to crack.